Hey, Scott from MMBClub.com here.
And Seth from SethMarkwood.com.
Together, the three of us, we are Markwood Men's Breakfast Club. Good morning, boy.
Good morning, Homer.
How you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm swell.
Good.
So we are at the start of something new. It was
That is not Diet Coke.
It was last fall.
Is that Diet Coke?
It should be Diet Coke. It tastes like
Tastes-
grape.
No, it tastes like Coke.
No, it tastes like Diet Coke because we've been noticing at McDonald's recently.
Real sweet.
Diet Coke tastes like grape. There's some back note.
Is it because
of
they've
grape.
got Coke in it?
I don't think so. But
it's real sweet.
what's weird about that is McDonald's doesn't sell a grape drink. So how is the taste of grape slipping into the Diet Coke?
I don't know.
I'll drink it if you don't want it. If you're scared of that,
I might be. We'll see. I don't have anything else to drink, so
we'll see what
I
happens. I have a warm bottle of Coke Zero over here.
might pass.
Hard pass.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it was 6 months ago or so. We were at a pipe show and picked up some samples from a couple different manufacturers, and here they are. They've been sitting here awaiting us and our face holes, and we are finally at the point now where we've finished the tobacco advent samples.
Had a few weeks of Brendan's Choice.
We smoked our way through some Brendan's Choice. And now we're going to start working our way through this tobacco. Most of this is Lane. Some of this is Sutliff. A couple of these are tobaccos I picked up on a recent trip to Germany. I've got several tins here. And so for the next several weeks, did you count these?
Well, we've got 16 tobaccos from Lane.
Wow.
Tobacco samples. I didn't count the other stuff.
Is there any 1Q in here?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't recall.
So just reach in here randomly and pull one out, and that's going to be what we're going to smoke this week, and we'll smoke our way through this over the next many weeks.
All right, we've got black coffee.
Really? Okay.
What it says.
So while you're doing that, I wanted to show you something that I picked up in Texas on a recent trip, and you might be familiar with these. I grabbed these at somebody had recommended this. They saw that I was down in Houston and said, oh, you need to go into the grocery store HEB and pick up some of their matches. I'm like, why do I need to go and pick up matches at a grocery store? I had some time to kill. I went to HEB. And the thing about HEB is all the guys on YouTube that are smoking meat in Texas go to HEB to buy their meat, primarily brisket. So when I was there, I was in awe of the brisket they had. And then I finally remembered what I went there for, and I found these matches. And they're kind of interesting in that they notice it's a box of matches, but the end of the box is closed.
Okay.
The end that is open has a little tab on it that you pull, and basically it's like a drawer slide. And then there's your matches inside. And what's interesting about these matches, you want to hold one up to the camera?
Sure. Oh, weird.
That is, I don't know what you want to call that, the thorn off of a cacti.
Oh.
So this is a natural stick
Interesting.
from a cactus that they've made a match from. Now, I lit one of these, and here's what's weird about these. They're soft,
They flex.
almost like a piece of plastic.
So it's almost like lighting a paper match.
Yeah, so I think I'm
MacBook.
gonna hold that, and then with the tip of my finger on top, hold that on like I do with a paper match.
Huh.
So weird. I've got a couple of them. I think these cost like almost nothing. It's a package of 10 of these were less than $1, and that's cool enough that I thought I'd go ahead and bring those home. So while we're lighting this up, the Cobfoolery Contest, the 2019 Cobfoolery Contest, the entries ended yesterday, and we are now into the voting stage. We have some judges that are helping to vote for the amateurs, and the professionals are being judged by you. So if you haven't seen that video announcement yet, go over to the Aristocob channel. I'll put a link down below to the actual video announcement. But there is a link for you to vote for the pro of your choice. And I'll ask you what I'll ask in that video as well, and that is, try if you can to not consider the personalities. Let's try to judge these based on the quality of the pipe and the craftsmanship. And think about it this way: which pipe of the ones that were entered would you like to own? And you'll be able to cast your vote in a couple categories there for the pro class. So please check that out.
Is there any way? I know you haven't done it this way in the past, and maybe you can't. Maybe it's too late to do it at this point. But for future years, could you make the pro category a blind?
I mean, sure, it could be done.
The problem is,
But
all
it
the
can't be done.
carvers
Yeah.
post pictures of their pipe.
Correct. And you can't blame them. You look at some of the entries, the time that they've put into this, and the quality of their work is unreal.
Right.
And so I can't blame anybody for showing some progress shots on Instagram or sharing in detail. And again, the entries are being done through YouTube videos. So how are you going to do that? What channel would you load it to? I think it's my channel. Anyway, this is all stuff that I thought of years ago and decided, let's just do it the way I do it. It's not ideal.
Yeah.
There is an element of it being a little bit of a personality contest or a popularity contest. But then you got to look at, what are my motives? As the owner of a website that sells corncob pipes, my motive is to get people interested in corncob pipes. And ideally, get them to come to my website.
Sure.
Check out my channel and so on. And so the aspect of it where you got a pro who's drumming up some interest from their fans.
Yeah. It's a win-win.
Kind of what I'm after here. So I don't see it changing too much from what I've got, what we're doing. Picked up an ash there. That's unusual.
Yeah, I did too. My first go with this. I don't know if it's a tobacco or...
How could it be? An ash? How could you get an ash? No, mine was a real ash. I'm skipping those matches to get this thing lit. Anyway, there have been some just incredible entries, and I can't talk about one because then I have to talk about all of them. But this has been an amazing year, and I'm super proud of the folks that took the time to enter. And I would encourage you, there's some of the amateurs that have a very, very small subscriber count.
Right.
And with the quality of work they've done, come on, guys, and the YTPC, let's go out there and give these guys some love. Give them some thumbs up and leave a great job comment. You can see all of them in 4 playlists. One for freehand pro, one for classic pro, one for freehand amateur, one for classic amateur. And as of this recording, and we're recording this a few days ahead, there are no homegrown Cobfoolery entries. So I don't know if people just didn't get anything grown or didn't get to their pipes. If there is a homegrown Cobfoolery entry, you'll find that listed, and that'll be being judged by my panel of judges.
And if there isn't one this year, sounds like that would be an easy category to compete in next year. Unless a whole bunch of people jump on growing their own.
Yeah.
Right?
Why not? Why not?
For your competition, less competition.
Why not? There were some folks that when they grew their corn, they asked, is it okay to make a pipe from a cob that was grown last year? Because Missouri Meerschaum likes to age their cobs 2 years. They don't always, right? There was that time during the drought where they actually created a kiln so they could dry that year's cobs and make pipes from them. And so, no, you do not have to dry them 2 years. However, if you grew yours 2 years ago and you're just getting around to making your pipe, you'll find that cob has gotten very, very hard.
Yeah.
More like wood. So there is the advantage of spending time.
Right. So it makes it easier to carve.
Yeah.
And work with.
Yeah. So the other thing that we have going on is both of us have really gotten into smoking meat. And that's why I got so excited when I was down in Texas at HEB. I took a picture of myself, a selfie, and put it on Instagram of me with the briskets because my mind was blown at the variety and choice they have here. Most of our grocery stores don't have brisket, and if they have brisket, you have 2 of them to choose from, and they are whatever grade of meat they are, and you have no choice. If I go into Costco, that gives me the best possible chance of finding some variety, but even there, maybe there's at most 6 briskets to choose from. And some of those are a day away from expiring. And if I'm buying ahead for the weekend, then maybe I don't want to buy
as much. Yeah.
Not that it's going to be bad immediately upon the last sale date, but anyway, HEB had this big cooler chest, and I may have talked about this before because I was just so blown away by this. This big cooler chest that had to be 24 full briskets in the different qualities. So you could buy choice, you could buy, select is the lowest grade, you could buy choice, you could buy prime. Then they also sold the flat and the point. Brisket is actually 2 muscles. It's on the chest of the cow, and you get 2 briskets from a cow.
Okay.
And that muscle, that brisket is 2 muscles that their grain is running counter to each other. And where they come together, there's a layer of fat in between them. And that layer of fat is called the decal. And so this part down here is called the flat, because if you were to cut at the decal, you're left with this flat piece of meat. And the part on top of that, and the decal and the part below, where they do sandwich over each other, that is very fatty and very good. So over here is the very lean parts. And if you're going to make burnt ends, the burnt ends come from this end way over here.
Huh, okay.
Okay. So they do sell there, they separate it and they sell those parts separately. And every now and then we'll find here in grocery stores where they'll sell just the flat. You never find just the point. You never find just the fatty part. And I suspect that that's because they probably sell those off to restaurants.
Right.
Because if you're going to cook just one half of a brisket, you're going to cook that half, the fattier half. And so I just cooked a brisket this weekend, and I was having issues with my smoker for the first time. It was the temperature was fluctuating crazy amounts, and my smoker's coming up on 3 years. So I contacted the manufacturer while I am in the middle of the smoke and said, look, here's what I'm experiencing, what's going on. And they threw a few diagnostic things at me and then finally came back with, we're going to send you out a replacement thermometer for it. So is it the thermometer? Is it the controller? We're going to start with the simplest thing to change, I guess. But I'm using a pellet smoker, and we're really reliant upon the electronics with a pellet smoker. Now, the other extreme is what Boy has been doing, and tell him about your experience.
I don't have electronics at all. I have an offset smoker, which is a traditional grill with a small smoke box that's off to one side. And the smoker that I got was designed to be a grill first, smoker second. And so there are some design decisions that were made by the manufacturer that aren't ideal for smoking.
For example?
The biggest example is that the chimney on a smoker, you want the lid area of your smoke of your grill to fill with smoke, so that everything is being surrounded by smoke. Well, on my smoker, the chimney is in the top corner opposite the smoker, the smoke box. Well, what this does in practice is the smoke enters the grill chamber. The smoke rises up to the top of the lid and floats along the top, because smoke is always going to rise, floats along the top until it hits the chimney and then exits out. And so what that means in practice is when I'm grilling or trying to smoke this many chicken wings, only this many are actually being smoked. The rest are getting very small remnants. And so I'm constantly having to rotate out because I have a very small window where there's actual direct smoke being applied. The other downside of that is because that smoke region is so close to the smoke box, you're getting a lot of heat cook instead of just smoked cook. And so it'll cook faster than you want with something you're smoking. Smoking is more low. You want a penetration of the smoke over just a temperature. I could cook it in the oven if I just wanted temperature. And so that's the biggest one. So I've seen a lot of videos. Even before I bought this smoker, I wasn't planning on using it much as a smoker because I've not had any experience with that. But now I'm using it primarily as a smoker, more so than as a grill. And so I just last week made some modifications to it. One of them is a very common modification for mine where you take a dryer hose and connect a dryer hose to that chimney.
Flexible aluminum hose.
Right. And then run it along the inside of the lid so that it's essentially extending the chimney down about halfway down the smoker. So that allows that upper chamber, which is everything above the grill surface, to fill with smoke before the smoke can really exit out. The other thing that I've seen done...
Before you go on.
Sure.
How well did that work?
I don't know because I made like 4 modifications all at once.
But could you tell when you went to check, was the lids filled with smoke?
Yes, it was. It worked. It worked
and again,
well.
the kind of smoke we're looking for, we talked about this once before,
Generally clear.
is very clear.
Right.
So you wouldn't want to open it and have billows
Right.
of white smoke coming out. That would mean something's going wrong in your firebox.
Yeah. So there was definitely smoke much more consistently throughout the upper chamber. The other big change I made at the same time is I've seen advertised these smoke plates, which are metal or steel plates that you can get that sit right around the where the smoke box connects. The plates would sit right above that, so it's below your meat, your grate, but above the smoke line. And you can use these plates and place them and then allow strategic gaps.
So the
that
smoke
will
is
allow
coming out of
smoke
the firebox and running along here.
until it hits
little,
a gap.
Little leaks up, little
Right.
leaks up.
And so that will allow the smoke to move more consistently throughout the thing. There are ways that you can test this. I didn't have time to do that, and I didn't want to spend a lot of money
What do
on
those things cost?
these plates. I have no idea, actually. I assume $30 or so to get a set of 4. That's just a wild guess. What I did instead is, because I made the decision to make these modifications, I decided to smoke a turkey. Because I decided to smoke a turkey kind of last minute, I made the modifications last minute because I was afraid of smoking a turkey with my smoker the way it was previously configured. The one change I knew I needed to make is that chimney modification, because otherwise I'm going to be smoking just a portion of my turkey and having to spin it to get, a quarter of it smoked at a time. But then the other modification, I wanted to make these plates to help the smoke elongate and fill up that whole chamber even better. But I didn't want to spend the money. I didn't have the time. And so I went to Home Depot, bought a couple of paving bricks, placed the bricks on the bottom of my grill to create a surface. And then I got just 4 aluminum serving dishes. I got 10 for $8.
These are rectangular, like a chafing dish.
Right. Less than a buck a piece. I took 4 of them and I set them on top of the bricks. Doing that gave me the desired effect, but it was too much coverage, and they covered the entirety of the surface.
Is there a channel under the brick, next to the brick?
Yeah.
Tell me what, I don't understand what the
Yeah,
pavers do what?
So
We need some visual
I got
aids.
it.
We need a whiteboard.
We're good, I know. So if this is the bottom of my grill, the bricks allowed me a surface to put the plate on top of. That creates a channel, or 2 channels beside the brick, that smoke can flow through. When it finds a gap in the plates, it can rise up through the gap. Again, smoke is always going to rise. The problem is the plates the chafing dishes I used were actually too big. They created an entire surface. And so what I did is I took them, stacked them up, and I drilled a whole bunch of holes all the way through. I made a grid through them and then stuck them up. And so what I ended up with was a surface, an entire surface area that had smoke that allowed the smoke to come through and also rise up through these various holes, these leak points. And when I did that in combination with the chimney, I was getting smoke going all the way from one end, from the smoke box all the way to the other end of my chimney, or my smoker, with consistent smoke rising all the way throughout. Now, I did lose some of the consistency as the holes were getting filled up with drippings from the turkey, but there was still enough there that entire area was filling with smoke.
So larger holes then.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe larger holes. I mean, for what it was, if I wanted to do it again too, if I was doing something smaller, one modification that could be made is I could just cut I could just use an piece of aluminum foil to adjust hole coverage as well, so I could cover some of the holes if I wanted to strategically have that go out. But I was very pleased with the amount of smoke. I had never before, in the year of owning this, I've never seen smoke rising from the far side, and it was rising from the far side on this. And so I was able to smoke a 20-pound turkey in about 4.5 hours, and it was so good. It was just absolutely amazing.
Now, I saw pictures of both the whole bird and of the pieces, and the pieces looked great. I mean, they looked juicy through and through. You could see a smoke ring actually on the outer layers, right? Mm-hmm. But the picture of the whole bird didn't look that great. What happened with the skin?
Oh, so I actually don't know. I think some of the skin fell off. So what I had to do after about the first hour to hour and a half, I did have a hard time regulating the temperature because I don't have a pellet smoker, so I'm putting in chunks of wood. One of the things is with the size of my smoke box, to get the temperature I needed, I was having to add a lot of wood. So I had a roaring fire in the smoke box, which was actually melted off a good bit of the paint. That's okay. I'm okay with that.
Fire resistant paint.
Right. It melted the paint. It's what was needed to get the temperature up where I needed it to be. And so after about an hour and a half, the skin of the bird was completely cooked. And in fact, the underside, which you don't eat the skin off of anyway, I wasn't too worried about, was black. It was starting to char from the direct smoke. And so I wrapped it with aluminum foil, and I had seen people make a dome with aluminum foil, so I started with that. The problem is when you make a dome, now you're just trapping the smoke that goes into the dome. And so I ended up pretty early on just doing a tight wrap of aluminum foil all the way around the top and sides of the bird, and even tucked it under so that only a little bit was exposed. So at that point, it was essentially like it was just cooking in an oven.
But that's just like cooking a pork butt or cooking a brisket. A lot of folks will wrap them. After a couple hours, it's gotten as much smoke as you need.
That's right.
There's a point where that smoke flavor starts to become acrid. It's kind of bitter. So you kind of usually want to cut the smoke off.
Yeah. And so that's exactly what I did. And once I did that, it continued to cook. It still, the skin did continue to cook a little bit, but I don't know. It had some bald spots. When I removed the foil, it had some bald spots. The crazy thing is, the few bald spots that were on the breast of the bird where the skin was gone wasn't stuck to the foil. So it's not like it stuck and got ripped off.
By that time, it was already dry.
It was just melting off or something. It was gone. There was no remnant of the skin that disappeared.
Well, the skin, it looked like it split and maybe pulled away. So I was wondering if at some point, as you were working with getting that fire to the temp you wanted, if maybe you got a bit too high and split the skin. But the bottom line is,
it was delicious.
You're not taking pictures for the cover of Better Homes and Gardens magazine. You're after smoked meat.
That's right.
My brisket over the weekend, I had planned on cooking it pretty low and slow, and I also planned on not wrapping it. There's kind of three, I don't even know what to say, three thoughts here. One is just do it naked the whole time, let the thing just get as smoky as can be. The next one is wrap it in aluminum foil. It's called the Texas crutch because it's what they do in Texas. However, the latest thing they've been doing in Texas is wrapping it with butcher paper. And butcher paper seems to be a nice compromise because it blocks some of that smoke while not completely coating the brisket and basically turning it into a a boiling bag or something
Right.
like
Might
that.
as well be
where-
cooking it in the oven.
Again, it's been smoking for hours before you wrap it. But at that point,
But
you're
at that
right.
point-
if you wrap, and I've done this where I've wrapped the meat and then stuck it in the oven
Yeah.
because the oven's consistent temperature and it's not taking on any more smoke. In this,
Yeah, I thought about doing that because I was having such a hard time regulating the temperature. I wanted it right at 300 degrees, and it kept dipping way low. It was 250, 225, 275. I'm having to tinker with it a lot. A lot. Every 30 minutes or so, I'm having to make modifications to get the temperature to stay up. And there was a point where I was thinking, I have this sucker wrapped tight with aluminum foil.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't know if I just threw it in the oven.
It does not know. It does not know.
I would know that.
I've done ribs that way.
Yeah.
And ribs, again, after they get the smoke, they don't care.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care where they spend the rest of that time. But I was planning on smoking mine without any wrapper because I wanted to get some nice smoky bark on it. And you get the bark is a combination of the seasoning you put on it and let's just call it some dehydration of the outer layer and the caramelization of what fat you don't carve. I carve 3 pounds of fat at $3.99 a pound. I carved $12 worth of fat off of that brisket, and I even left about half of the fat cap at a 1/4 inch thick because I wanted to experiment with how much fat should I remove.
What'd you do with the fat?
I actually put them into a big Ziploc bag and put it in the freezer because I haven't decided what to do with the fat yet.
You should have just thin cut it, put it in the fridge, make it solid, thin cut it, and then coat it in something and smoked it.
Well, I know that you can render it down to basically fat that you can fry with, or they call
The
it
most
beef
expensive.
tallow.
Yeah.
You can also use it in sausage. I've never made sausage, and maybe it's going to become my first attempt at sausage. Some of the fat that you find on the outside of the brisket is not great fat for eating. The fat that's between the two layers, the decal, that's good eating fat.
Yeah.
It's different, got a completely different texture to it. Anyway, there's also two trains of thought on which direction you put the fat cap. Do you put the fat cap down, or do you put the fat cap on top? The folks that put it on top say, again, two trains of thought. One is it will melt down into the meat. Scientists have proven to me that that's not true because the meat and the fat are not compatible. The meat is water-based, the fat is oil-based.
Oh, it's oleophilic.
So the fat actually
hydrophobic.
will not, the fat that's on the outside will not penetrate into the meat. However, it will base the meat and it'll keep the exterior moist. The train of thought of putting the fat cap down is if you have that excess heat like you were talking about on the bottom of your turkey,
Protect the bottom.
it'll protect the bottom. And with my smoker, the way my pellet smoker works, I do get a bit more heat radiating off of this little drip pan that's underneath. And I find that part of the meat wants to get overheated. So I either have to continually flip the meat, or I just go fat down and it works just fine. So that's what I did. I actually started it on with the fat cap up, and then an hour in, I flipped it over, and then that was it for the rest of the cook. So here was my frustration. Because I was having issues with the controller or the thermometer on the thing, at the most, I got to 225. 225 degrees was my absolute minimum that I wanted. I wanted between 225 250. So I had a really long cook time. And we missed the dinner mark. At dinner, we went and had barbecue at the local barbecue restaurant. And I could have wrapped it, and that would probably have sped up the cook time by about 4 hours. But I at that point, I was in, I'm just going to let this thing go. And I pulled it off. It was 12 hours total cook time. I put it on at 10:30 in the morning and pulled it off at 10:30 at night. At that point, I wrapped it in foil and stuck it into a cooler to rest. And then it rested for about an hour before I then took it out. Made one cut just to kind of check out the interior and to see, did I achieve what I wanted? Because at that point, I could have, in theory, stuck it in the oven. If it was way undercooked, right, I could have gone ahead and cooked it as two separate roasts at that point. But it was cooked fine. But what didn't happen is it didn't render the fat like I had wanted. Therefore, all in all, it was a prime piece of meat with lots of marbling. It was a pretty fatty eat. We ate half of it together last night, and it was good. But it was one of those things, you know. I guess if you wanted to have a brisket spread out over a lot of meals or a lot of guests, then you go really fat and cook slow because it was really rich.
Yeah.
But
there was lots of fat.
But it was good. It was good.
All right, so we'll need to revisit this at some point, and we need to do a cook-off with 2 cook-offs. We should do one pellet smoker versus offset smoker, and then we should also do a smoker versus sous vide, because I've been interested to do a brisket in the sous vide.
I did that once.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Did you start it in the smoker?
I did. Started it in the smoker, sous vide it, and then finished it in the smoker at a higher temperature to kind of, That was the one that we ate when my parents were in town, and we ate it in the gazebo in the back of the house, if you remember that. That was an 18-pound brisket, big brisket. Yeah, because of the way I put it into a cooler to rest, we could cook them both on the same day. My cooker at my house, yours at yours, we could put one of them into a cooler and take it to the other's house and compare them. We'd have to record both places and maybe put that on the Aristogrub channel.
Here you go. So it is just gearing up for smoker season, grill season. I mean, I've been doing it all summer, all winter.
For mortals.
Right. I'm doing it all winter. Gotten a lot of practice, and my wife has become all too happy to let me cook when I want to pull the grill out. So.
What brand of grill do you have?
Camp Chef, maybe?
No, mine's Camp
Yours
Chef.
is Camp Chef.
Charbroil?
Char grill.
Char grill.
Char grill.
So yours is basically, it's based on the design of a barrel stove. It looks like a barrel with a little barrel attached to it as the smoke box.
Yeah, in fact, they sell mine. Mine is probably more commonly purchased without the smoke box. The smoke box they sell as a separate standalone grill. It came with feet, and you can use it as like a
picnic table grill.
Yeah, but I had no interest in doing that because I have a full-size grill, and just use it strictly for the smoke box. Over the winter time, a lot of the time over the last year, a lot of the time I've used my grill when not grilling has also just been for sous vide, for flamethrowering things, but certainly enjoy smoking more. I was telling Homer, one of the aspects of smoking that I have not yet gotten into is different wood types, wood flavorings, how they play a part. I have just, because of access and because of the offset grill, I mean, I live in the suburbs. I am just using logs, using firewood that neighbors and other people have given us from felled trees.
Hardwood trees?
Yeah, and so just using that strictly. For the turkey, I did get some some pecan wood, soak it, and add that periodically to get a little bit of smoke flavor. But that'll be the next phase I'd like to get into, is learning more about that.
So as we wrap this up, what do you think of the tobacco? What is it again?
Black coffee. Black coffee, I think it's okay. It's not my favorite. It's got a lot of, what's it have in it?
Burley.
Burley? Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's a little harsh and a little bit unflavored. I mean, it's straight tobacco burley in Virginia, I think.
You know what it tastes like to me? It tastes a bit like Carter Hall. If you remember Carter Hall, an over-the-counter tobacco.
Yeah.
It does have some other flavoring in it, but that kind of went away pretty quick.
Yeah. I mean, I smoked almost a bowl and a half. It also burned really quickly for me.
All right.
So,
well, hey, it's one down.
Yeah, it's another 15 left to go. What about you? What are you smoking or grilling these days? And have you had black coffee by Lane? And if so, what do you think of it? Thank you guys for watching. We will see you next week.
Make it a great week.